A week is a time unit equal to 7 days. It is the standard time period used for cycles of work days and rest days in most parts of the world, mostly alongside the Gregorian calendar. The days of the week were named in different languages after classical planets, various deities and heavenly bodies and other sources. In English, the names are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. ISO 8601 includes the ISO week date system, a numbering system for weeks within a given year. Each week begins on a Monday and is associated with the year that contains that week's Thursday. The term week is sometimes expanded to refer to other time units comprising a few days, such as the nundinal cycle of the ancient Roman calendar. Definition and duration. A week is defined as an interval of exactly 7 days, so that technically, except at daylight saving time transitions or leap seconds, 1 week equals 7 days equals 168 hours equals 10,080 minutes equals 604,800 seconds. With respect to the Gregorian calendar, 1 Gregorian calendar year equals 52 weeks plus 1 day. 1 week equals 1,606,957, 22.9984% of an average Gregorian month. In a Gregorian mean year, there are 365.2425 days, and thus exactly 52 and 71/400ths or 52.1775 weeks. There are exactly 20,871 weeks in 400 Gregorian years, so the 30th of April 1611 was a Saturday just like the 30th of April 2011. A system of dominical letters has been used to determine the day of week in the Gregorian or the Julian calendar. Relative to the path of the moon, a week is 23.659% of an average lunation, or 94.637% of an average quarter lunation. In antiquity, days were measured either from sunset to sunset, or from sunrise to sunrise, so that the length of the week would be subject to slight variations depending on the time of year and the observer's geographical latitude. Adding 1 to the remainder after dividing by 7, a date's Julian day number yields that date's ISO 8601 day of the week. For example, the Julian day number of the 16th of January 2016 is 2,457,404. Calculating yield 6, corresponding to Saturday. Name. The English word week comes from the Old English wissa, ultimately from a common Germanic *wicken, from a root *wick, turn, move, change. The Germanic word probably had a wider meaning prior to the adoption of the Roman calendar, perhaps, succession series, as suggested by Gothic Wicco translating taxis, order, in Luke chapter 1 verse 8. The 7-day week is named in many languages by a word derived from 7, such as the Latin septimana and its derivatives in Romance languages. In English, there is the archaic term sennight, an abbreviation of 7 night, still in use in the early 19th century. To judge from Jane Austen's letters. Days of the week. The days of the week were originally named for the classical planets. This naming system persisted alongside an ecclesiastical tradition of numbering the days. In ecclesiastical Latin beginning with Dominica as the first day, the Greco-Roman gods associated with the classical planets were rendered in their interpretatio Germanica at some point during the late Roman Empire, yielding the Germanic tradition of names based on indigenous deities. The ordering of the weekday names are not that of the classical order of the planets. Instead, the planetary hours systems resulted in succeeding days being named for planets that are 3 places apart in their traditional listing. This characteristic was apparently discussed in Plutarch in a treatise written in c. AD 100, which is reported to have addressed the question of why are the days named after the planets reckoned in a different order from the actual order. An ecclesiastical, non-astrological, system of numbering the days of the week was adopted in late antiquity. This model also seems to have influenced the designation of Wednesday as midweek in Old High German and Old Church Slavonic. Old Church Slavonic may also model the name of Monday, after the Latin feria secunda. The ecclesiastical system became prevalent in Eastern Christianity, but in the Latin West it remains extant only in modern Icelandic, Galician and Portuguese. History. While the seven-day cycle may have deep historical origins in the ancient Near East, the planetary theory of horoscopy is a development of Babylonian astrology roughly around 500 BC, with the oldest extant horoscope dated to just before 400 BC. The seven-day week being approximately a quarter of a lunation has been proposed as the implicit, astronomical origin of the seven-day week. And indeed the Babylonian calendar used intercalary days to synchronize the last week of a month with the new moon. The seven-day week seems to have been adopted by the Persian Empire, in Judaism and in Hellenistic astrology, and in Gupta India and Tang China. The Babylonian system was received by the Greeks in the 4th century BC, but the designation of the 7 days of the week to the 7 planets does not seem to have any Babylonian precedent and is rather an original innovation of Hellenistic astrology. Probably first conceived in the 2nd century BC. It was widely known throughout the Roman Empire by the 1st century AD, and ultimately replaced the older Roman system of the nundinal cycle during the 4th century. Ancient Near East. The earliest evidence of an astrological significance of a 7-day period is connected to Gudi, priest king of Lagash in Sumer during the Kushan dynasty, who built his 7-room temple, which he dedicated with a 7-day festival. In the flood story of the Assyro-Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh, the storm lasts for 7 days, the dove is sent out after 7 days, and the Noah-like character of Utnapishtim leaves the ark 7 days after it reaches firm ground. It seems likely that the Hebrew 7-day week is based on the Babylonian tradition, although going through certain adaptations. George Aaron Barton speculated that the 7-day creation account of Genesis is connected to the Babylonian creation epic, Enuma Elish, which is recorded on 7 tablets. Babylonians celebrated a holy day every 7 days, starting from the new moon, then the first visible crescent of the moon, but adjusted the number of days of the final week in each month so that months would continue to commence on the new moon. Counting from the new moon, the Babylonians celebrated the 7th, 14th, 21st and 28th as holy days, also called evil days. On these days, officials were prohibited from various activities and common men were forbidden to make a wish, and at least the 28th was known as a rest day. On each of them, offerings were made to a different god and goddess. In a frequently quoted suggestion going back to the early 20th century, the Hebrew Sabbath is compared to the Sumerian Sabbat, mid-rest, a term for the full moon. The Sumerian term has been reconstructed as rendered Sapatum or Sabbatum in Babylonian, possibly present in the lost 5th tablet of the Enuma Elish. Tentatively reconstructed, Sa, Bebath shalt thou then encounter, mid-month, lie. Achaemenid period. The Zoroastrian calendar follows the Babylonian in relating the 7th and other days of the month to Ahura Mazda. The forerunner of all modern Zoroastrian calendars is the system used to reckon dates in the Persian Empire, adopted from the Babylonian calendar by the 4th century BC. Frank C. Sent in his book Christian Liturgy, Catholic and Evangelical points to data suggesting evidence of an early continuous use of a 7-day week, referring to the Jews during the Babylonian captivity in the 6th century BC, after the destruction of the Temple of Solomon. While the seven-day week in Judaism is tied to creation account in the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, it is not clear whether the Genesis narrative predates the Babylonian captivity of the Jews in the 6th century BC, at least since the Second Temple period under Persian rule. Judaism relied on the seven-day cycle of recurring Sabbaths. Tablets from the Achaemenid period indicate that the lunation of 29 or 30 days basically contained 3 seven-day weeks, and a final week of 8 or 9 days inclusive, breaking the continuous seven-day cycle. The Babylonians additionally celebrated the 19th as a special, evil day, the Day of Anger, because it was roughly the 49th day of the month, completing a week of weeks, also with sacrifices and prohibitions. Difficulties with Friedrich Delitzsch's origin theory connecting Hebrew Shabbat with the Babylonian lunar cycle include reconciling the differences between an unbroken week and a lunar week, and explaining the absence of texts naming the lunar week as Shabbat in any language, Hellenistic and Roman era in Jewish sources by the time of the Septuagint. The term Sabbath by synecdoche also came to refer to an entire seven-day week, the interval between two weekly Sabbaths. Jesus's parable of the Pharisee and the publican describes the Pharisee as fasting twice in the week. The ancient Romans traditionally used the 8-day nundinal cycle, but after the Julian calendar had come into effect in 45 BC, the 7-day week came into use. For a while, the week and the nundinal cycle coexisted, but by the time the week was officially adopted by Constantine in AD 321, the nundinal cycle had fallen out of use. The association of the days of the week with the sun, the moon and the 5 planets visible to the naked eye dates to the Roman era. The continuous 7-day cycle of the days of the week can be traced back to the reign of Augustus. The first identifiable date cited complete with day of the week is the 6th of February 60. Identified as of Sunday, in a Pompeian graffito. According to the currently used Julian calendar, the 6th of February 60 was, however, a Wednesday. This is explained by the existence of 2 conventions of naming days of the weeks based on the planetary hours system. The 6th of February was of Sunday, based on the sunset naming convention, and a Wednesday, based on the sunrise naming convention. Adoption in Asia. The earliest known reference in Chinese writings to a 7-day week is attributed to Fan Ning, who lived in the late 4th century in the Jin dynasty, while diffusions from the Manichaeans are documented with the writings of the Chinese Buddhist monk Yi Jing and the Ceylonese or Central Asian Buddhist monk Bu Kong of the 7th century. The Chinese variant of the planetary system was soon brought to Japan by the Japanese monk Obo Daishi. Surviving diaries of the Japanese statesman Fujiwara Michinaga show the 7-day system in use in Heian Japan as early as 1007. In Japan, the 7-day system was kept in use for astrological purposes until its promotion to a full-fledged Western-style calendrical basis during the Meiji era. The 7-day week was known in India by the 6th century, are referenced in the Pankajadantaka. Shashi mentions the Garga Samhita, which he places in the 1st century BC or AD, as a possible earlier reference to a 7-day week in India. He concludes, the above references furnish a terminus ad quem. The terminus a quo cannot be stated with certainty. Christian Europe. The 7-day weekly cycle has remained unbroken in Europe for almost 2 millennia, despite changes to the Alexandrian, Julian, and Gregorian calendars, demonstrated by the date of Easter Sunday having been traced back through numerous computistic tables to an Ethiopic copy of an early Alexandrian table beginning with the Easter of AD 311. The Roman context of the spread of Christianity meant that Rome contributed a lot to the structure and calendar of the new faith. month, a tradition of divinations arranged for the days of the week on which certain feast days occur develops in the early medieval period. There are many later variants of this, including the German Bauernpraktik and the versions of Era Pater published in 16th to 17th century England, mocked in Samuel Butler's Hudibras. South and East Slavic versions are known as Kolyadniki, with Bulgarian copies dating from the 13th century, and Serbian versions from the 14th century. Medieval Christian traditions associated with the lucky or unlucky nature of certain days of the week survived into the modern period. This concerns primarily Friday, associated with the crucifixion of Jesus. Sunday, sometimes personified as Saint Anastasia, was itself an object of worship in Russia, a practice denounced in a sermon extant in copies going back to the 14th century. Sunday, in the ecclesiastical numbering system, also counted as the feria prima or the first day of the week, yet, at the same time, figures as the 8th day, and has occasionally been so called in Christian liturgy. Justin Martyr wrote, "The first day after the Sabbath, remaining the first of all the days, is called, however, the 8th, according to the number of all the days of the cycle, and, yet, remains the first. A period of 8 days, starting and ending on a Sunday, is called an octave, particularly in Roman Catholic liturgy." In German, the phrase in acht Tage means 1 week from today. Week numbering. Weeks in a Gregorian calendar year can be numbered for each year. This style of numbering is commonly used in some European and Asian countries, but rare elsewhere. ISO 8601 includes the ISO week date system, a numbering system for weeks. Each week begins on a Monday and is associated with the year that contains that week's Thursday. For example, Week 1 of 2004 ran from Monday the 29th of December 2003 to Sunday the 4th of January 2004, because its Thursday was the 1st of January 2004, whereas Week 1 of 2005 ran from Monday the 3rd of January 2005 to Sunday the 9th of January 2005. Because its Thursday was the 6th of January 2005 and so, the first Thursday of 2005. The highest week number in a year is either 52 or 53. Schematically, this ISO convention translates as follows. In some countries, though, the numbering system is different from the ISO standard. At least 6 numberings are in use. The semiconductor package date code is offered a 4-digit date code YYWW, where the first 2 digits YY are the last 2 digits of the calendar year and the last 2 digits WW are the 2-digit week number. The tire date code mandated by the US DOT is a 4-digit date code WWYY with 2 digits of the week number WW followed by the last 2 digits of the calendar year YY. Weeks. In other calendars, the term week is sometimes expanded to refer to other time units comprising a few days. Such weeks of between 4 and 10 days have been used historically in various places. Intervals longer than 10 days are not usually termed weeks, as they are closer in length to the fortnight or the month than to the 7-day week. Pre-modern calendars unrelated to the Chaldean, Hellenistic, Christian or Jewish traditions often have time cycles between the day and the month of varying lengths, sometimes also called weeks. An 8-day week was used in ancient Rome and possibly in the pre-Christian Celtic calendar. Traces of a 9-day week are found in Baltic languages and in Welsh. The ancient Chinese calendar had a 10-day week, as did the ancient Egyptian calendar. A 6-day week is found in the Archon calendar. Several cultures used a 5-day week, including the 10th century Icelandic calendar, the Javanese calendar, and the traditional cycle of market days in Korea. The Igbo have a market week of 4 days. Evidence of a 3-day week has been derived from the names of the days of the week in Gipuzkoan Basque. The Aztecs divided a ritual cycle of 260 days, known as Tonalpouli, into 20 weeks or 13 days known as Trecina. They also divided the solar year into 18 periods of 20 days and 5 nameless days known as Nemontimi, creating a 20-day month, divided into 4 5-day weeks. The Maya divided a 260-day ritual cycle known as Ocan into 20 weeks or 13 days known as Trecina. The Maya also divided the year, Hab, into 18 periods of 20 days, Uanal, and 5 nameless days known as Wayab. The Balinese Poricone is a 210-day calendar consisting of 10 different concurrent weeks of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 days. Modern calendar reforms. A 10-day week, called decade, was used in France for 9.5 years from October 1793 to April 1802. Furthermore, the Paris Commune adopted the revolutionary calendar for 18 days in 1871. The international fixed calendar fixed every date always on the same weekday. This plan kept a 7-day week while defining a year of 13 months with 28 days each. It was the official calendar of the Eastman Kodak Company for decades. Between 1929 and 1931, the USSR changed from the 7-day week to a 5-day week. There were 72 weeks and an additional 5 national holidays inserted within 3 of them, totaling a year of 365 days. In 1931, after its brief experiment with a 5-day week, the Soviet Union changed to a 6-day week. Every 6th day of the Gregorian calendar was a state rest day. The 5 additional national holidays in the earlier 5-day week remained and did not fall on the state rest day. But, as January, March, May, July, August, October and December have 31 days, the week after the state rest day of the 30th was 7 days long. This extra day was a working day for most or an extra holiday for others. Also, as February is only 28 or 29 days depending on whether it is a leap year or not, the 1st of March was also made a state rest day, although not every enterprise conformed to this. To clarify, the week after the state rest day, 25th February to the 1st of March, was only 5 or 6 days long, depending on whether it was a leap year or not. The week after that, 2 to the 6th of March, was only 5 days long. The calendar was abandoned the 26th of June 1940 and the 7-day week reintroduced the next day.